What's up, everybody? Greg and Meg here for another breakdown of Lovecraft Country. This is episode 7, I Am.
And of course, we are going to be getting into some major spoilers, so if you haven't watched the episode, leave, watch it, come back, and we'll be here when you get back.
Let's do it. Let's break it down.
We kick off this week with a little bit of a reminder, in case you had forgotten, which I certainly had. Hippolyta has Hiram's orrery. She's been working on it all this time while we've been focusing on other things over in Korea last week. And she's also got some clues. If you remember, she peeled off with Dee and Woody back a few episodes ago to go try and track down or follow George's path. And she has. They found the rubble of Braithwaite Manor and a very conveniently placed copy of Dee's little comic that she gives, which, I mean, I don't know how realistic it is that a hand-drawn comic would have survived
the fire.
Right, but I mean,
Yeah.
I get it, sure.
Sure, it's okay. And with that said, too, she finds in the rubble, again, the logo symbol for, I'm guessing, the Order of the Ancient Dawn. We've seen it multiple times back in Whitey on the Moon, episode 2. Where you can see it behind Atticus and many moments throughout the episode. And it was also, it's featured on the ring itself that Christina gave to Tick right before everything goes crazy when she kills her dad and everyone else there at the manor.
Then we're back to Hippolyta really cracking the orrery. She's got some clues now, and she figures out that all she really had to do was tilt those two suns that were bothering her so much, and it opens up, and she gets yet another clue, and this one comes with some coordinates and a message that says every beginning in time and every limit of extension in space. The coordinates lead her to somewhere in Kansas, at least in real life. That's where, if we plug those coordinates into Google Maps, that's where they take us. We're not 100% sure where they go in Lovecraft Country Google Maps or the equivalent thereof, but regardless, she actually finds the observatory, so good on her.
Now, remember, she also gets a key from inside that orrery, too.
Did you kill them? No. They were already dead.
Back at Christina/William's place, Ruby's getting some answers of what's going on, and she is brought downstairs to Christina's lab, where you can see there's the bodies of William and Dell. It seems like she's been using the life force, yes, of two bodies that are still alive technically, and she's just been draining their blood and using it for this spell.
Now, I don't know why. I think maybe I was just so excited about being right that Christina and William were the same person. It never occurred to me that William would have been a person independent of Christina, even though we knew when that episode happened that Dell was the lady who had the dogs back in Artem, right? But this really surprised me, the fact that, she or William and Christina were two individual people, and then William died. We get a exposition drop here from Christina where she explains who William was, why she's got this sort of vendetta against Lancaster, and why she wants to be into the Ancient Dawn, kind of. It's not totally clear what she plans to do, but we get some information. But I was totally surprised, and then I felt very dumb. For as smart as I felt calling the twist, I now felt very stupid that I didn't make this connection. Speaking of Letty and Tick and that whole crew, they're back in Chicago. They're dealing with some shared dreams. Remember back, this is, again, early stuff.
Episode 2, Whitey on the Moon.
Yep, episode 2, with the hallucination or the vision that Tick had of his great ancestor Hannah running out of the manor. Letty's having the same dream, except in this one, she's pregnant. And it becomes increasingly obvious throughout this episode that Letty actually is pregnant. We'll talk about this in a few minutes here. But the implication is pretty concerning, especially because they realize very quickly that they're having the same dream, but it's different a little bit. There's some discrepancy, you would say, between what they're dealing with here.
They figure out that Hannah's trying to tell them that the book is still out there. As you can see, she escaped the manor with the book.
Christina's going after the pages. We gonna get the whole damn book.
We also have some follow-up for Montrose and Sammy, which we got back in episode 5, I believe, with Montrose going to the drag ball, where he was sort of starting to come into himself a little bit. Here, that all kind of crashes to pieces in spectacular fashion, with Montrose not only shoving Sammy out, but kind of accidentally outing himself to both Letty and Tick, who don't handle it well, putting it lightly. It's getting a little tough this is 2 episodes in a row of Tick kind of showing his hand here as far as, his own issues and emotional, kind of baggage. And it's kind of hard to root for him at some points in this episode, especially now.
Letty was able to talk to Montrose and get info about where the book could be. He was able to track down a friend of the cousin on their mother's side in St. Louis.
And pointedly, this is the second time that Montrose has actually brought up the Tulsa massacres, which, might just be historical flavor. It also might mean that we're going to get some backstory for Montrose in a bit, and maybe that has something to do with his own personal story. So something to keep an eye on. Now, of course, there's still more family drama ahead. We have Hippolyta following those coordinates. She's taking their family car. I did love this moment for her where Tick and Letty kind of roll up like, we need the car. We have an important mission. And Hippolyta's like, nope, I also have an important mission, and mine is just as important as yours. Bye. Which, fair. So poor Tick and Letty are forced to take the bus on their trip while Hippolyta runs off to find the observatory. And there's also some tension brewing between Hippolyta and Dee, where we see Dee is no longer kind of the happy-go-lucky girl we saw in the earlier episodes, where she's got her fun little checklist, she's making cute little comics. She's pissed at her mom, and for good reason. Her mom is slowly kind of pulling away and following all of these weird rabbit holes, and also her dad died, so this makes sense. But later we do see that Dee snuck one of her little comics into Hippolyta's picnic basket, so there's hope there. And they're gonna make it work, but there's they're mad at each other for right now.
Also, it looks like they dropped another historical Easter egg with Bessie Stringfield. This episode's writer, Shannon Houston, went on Twitter and wrote, Hippolyta needed to be reminded that she isn't the first black woman to want to go on an adventure, as Stringfield was the first African-American woman to ride across the United States solo. Letty is going to let Tick head on out on a Greyhound by himself here, because she needs to talk to Ruby for a second and try to, hash things out after the whole thing at the haunted house a few episodes prior.
Is the haunted house still in play? We don't go back to it at all. And it made me wonder.
She still owns it.
She still owns it?
She
okay.
Still owns it, yeah.
She's just letting someone else take care of it for right now, I guess.
I never heard Mama apologize in all her life. So maybe y'all aren't exactly the same.
They're both hiding secrets from each other, and I think that neither of them realize how closely related their secrets are.
Yep.
Which is funny for us as the audience, but not great for them as the characters who don't have that information.
If she just said one thing about the money and Christina, this whole thing could be different.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Tick gets to St. Louis on the Greyhound, where he is able to track down a family friend of his cousin Ethel, who he finds out through some like a family photo album that she has a particular birthmark that's the exact same one that he has on his back. Now Letty gives Tick the heads up that Hippolyta looks like she's on the hunt here for whatever the coordinates that are inside that orrery are, and this all ends up in Mayfield, where Hippolyta finds that observatory.
And now things get really weird. Hippolyta,
weird stories.
Yeah.
Lovecraft, weird stories. Here we go.
Hippolyta finds the observatory. There is some fun math and science going on here. She has a brief run-in with 2 of Lancaster's men who threaten to kind of ruin everything and have her on the ropes, which is when Tick shows up, because he knew how to get there because Letty had told him. That's the important thing. That's the important takeaway from that whole conversation, is that Tick was able to get from point A to point B because of that phone call. While this is all happening, they turn on this sort of weird Frankenstein-y, bizarre science machine. There's a weird science-y flux capacitor thing happening. There is some chaos, and in that chaos, both Hippolyta and Tick get sucked into a rift in space-time, I guess is the best way to say it. Very Lovecraftian for about a hot second. We notably, and this is important, we don't follow Tick through this journey. We follow exclusively Hippolyta and what she sees. And what she sees is really weird.
Now she has two, it looks like on both her wrists, two devices have been installed inside of her.
She's also confronted by a giant robot-like alien woman who just really, the second she walked on stage, I was like, oh, it's Garnet from Steven Universe. She looks exactly like Garnet from Steven Universe. She's not threatening, but she definitely isn't transparent with what's going on, and Hippolyta's freaking out, and this woman is just kind of chilling, and she says you're not in prison and leaves Hippolyta to her own devices. Which, again, it's weird now. It gets weirder.
Now she manages to get the door open, and then the large woman walks out, knocks her back, and then tells her, she gives her name as I am. She tells her, who do you want to be? Name it. And then she just tells her, like, give her a place, or wherever she wants to go. She can go wherever the hell she wants. So where does Hippolyta choose for the first place to go?
She picks, I mean, what else would anyone pick at this moment? But she wants to be on stage with Josephine Baker in Paris. I mean, sure, why not? Because honestly, okay, this is where I get to be a history nerd again, because Josephine Baker is a real person, which hopefully you knew that already, but she's also maybe one of the coolest people in the world in history. Just about everything about her kind of sounds like a fairy tale. She was born in the US in the early 1900s. She kind of got her start on vaudeville, not very well. She only had kind of a bit part, which this is a super obscure Easter egg, but in this montage with Hippolyta in, I guess, like the Matrix version of Josephine Baker's Paris, Hippolyta's thrown on stage with these dancers and she doesn't know what she's doing. One of Josephine Baker's early roles when she was a teenager in vaudeville was being a gag in a chorus line, where she would be at the very end of the chorus line and acting like she didn't know how to dance or didn't know how to do didn't know the steps, didn't know what she was doing. And then she would come out for the encore and like show everybody up, and be, do all the moves like way more complex. And like, that was the joke. So we kind of, I don't know if it was an intentional Easter egg here, but it's, kind of a nod.
Nights like this, I burn so bright, I feel like a star.
Anyway, more about Josephine Baker, because again, she's just so cool. She moved to Paris when she was 19, I believe, and like promptly became like a mega celebrity in the burlesque world. And when I say mega celebrity, I mean like she was again,
Charlie Chaplin. She
was insane. She became like a muse figure for a lot of people and one of like the staples of the Art Deco movement. She's the one who started, you've definitely seen this, the like banana dance, which is actually called, like formally is known as the Danse Sauvage, where she would come out in like a skirt of artificial bananas and dance around. She had a pet cheetah that would come on stage with her. It was named Chiquita. Sometimes it would get into the orchestra pit and just cause chaos because it's a cheetah. During World War II, she was a spy. Like, again, it sounds like I'm making all of this up in like of the plot of a movie. None of this is made up. This is real. She was a spy who used her sex symbol status and her fame to get close to dignitaries, and then she would report back to the French Resistance because she could. And then later she like adopted 12 kids and became a huge figure in like the civil rights movement in the 1950s. Again, insane. She's so cool. Go look her up if you haven't heard of her before.
All those years I thought I had everything I ever wanted, only to come here and discover that all I ever was the exact kind of Negro woman white folks wanted me to be. I feel like they just found a smart way to lynch me without me noticing the noose.
At this point, Hippolyta says she wants to, this makes me so mad.
I want to kill white folks.
So from that moment, she says, I am Hippolyta, screams out, and she is transported to another place in time with a group of African warrior women, and she is training for battle.
And then the battle gets very surreal. Like, this isn't any sort of actual historical battle. She's actually fighting with these sort of, warrior women that she's trained with. She's fighting Confederate soldiers in what looks like a desert. it is very clearly, you know, like a sort of fantasy representation of these wishes, but she's clearly, like, she's really getting into it, and she's kind of coming into her own. And as a side note, it's possible, it's not 100% clear, but it looks like one of the people that she gets in this battle is Nathaniel Bedford Forrest, who was a Confederate general, like a real Confederate general in the Civil War. And he was also a Grand Wizard in the KKK.
First.
So from this bloody, surreal battle, Hippolyta jumps again, and then she's back in kind of a mundane situation. She's with George. Hey, George is back. He's not technically resurrected. It's many worlds.
Different George.
Yeah, it's if you remember, another breakdown that we did on In GameSpot Universe was for the show Devs, which dove deeply into the many worlds theory, and we're seeing that here. So this is Hippolyta hopscotching through different dimensions, and this is one where she is back with George.
Not only in Devs, but also if you watch Legion, they broke down many worlds as well, as we're looking at just a different timeline. Think of it as this, the different paths you could go, and there are millions of different paths one could go. Let's say Hillary Clinton won the election. That's another path, a different path. All of these are different trails that could exist in another timeline. The many worlds theory, which is one of the Georges we see here that Hippolyta's talking to.
From there, we get more versions of Hippolyta and George, and this one, they're clearly versions of Dee's comic book characters. We have Hippolyta as Arinthia, the space cadet, and they're, you know, kind of doing their, I want to say Adam Strange. Yeah, I was going to say Adam Strange, but I also meant like the Rocketeer. Adam Strange is a very obscure DC reference, so if you are an Adam Strange fan, hey, that's awesome. Regardless, the two of them are doing, you know, kind of pulpy sci-fi vintage exploration through the stars, while another clip, this is a staple of Lovecraft Country at this point, with actual, you know, historical pop culture layered into the show.
VOs. Last week it was Judy Garland, and now we're getting another one this week. We've had James Baldwin in the past. Here we see Sun Ra with his Afrofuturism. In Space is the Place.
How do you know I'm real? Yes. I'm not real. I'm just like you. You don't exist in this society. If you did, your people wouldn't be seeking equal rights. You're not real. If you were, you'd have some status among the nations of the world.
It really reminded me a lot of the Netflix miniseries Maniac, which came out a couple years back, which dealt with sort of a similar style and a similar aesthetic of like a character that is familiar to us hopscotching through different, not necessarily versions of reality, but like versions of different genres and sort of these surrealist blends of reality and fantasy, which if you like this episode and if you like the vibe of this episode, definitely go watch that show. It's 8 episodes long and a great watch.
Now Hippolyta learns at the end that she is fully integrated into their society. I am. But she decides, you know what, even with all this power and gifts I have, and I need to go home back to my daughter. Smart, wise choice here. Dee needs her.
Sure.
So the last thing we see of her is she's sucked back out, and for all we know, she could just be put right back into her home in Chicago. That's where I like to think they took her. They didn't just have her go right back through the portal, which would have, I don't know, I thought it would help out, I guess, if they just brought her right back through the portal with Tick, because Tick, sure enough, he pops out of that portal, and Hippolyta is nowhere to be seen.
And notably, Tick must have had his own surreal experience. We have no idea what it might have been, or if he was with the same, you know, kind of group of people or what, but he is holding a book, and it is called Lovecraft Country, and it is written by George Freeman. We're getting real meta. Yeah, I have no idea what this is going to mean, but whatever happened to Tick in this, you know, sort of mind trip that he undoubtedly went on, it has something to do with George. And notably, of course, we don't just end on this sort of hopeful note of Tick having this mysterious book. We actually get a scene of good old Captain Lancaster finding a clue in Dee's comic, which this Lancaster has been a thorn in our side for a while now, but this is really the first time that he's had anyone, you know, like had the ability.
He's got names.
Yeah, he has names. He probably has locations. He can find, especially notably Dee, the most innocent person in this, you know, kind of group of people. She is now very much in danger. That's
spoiler.
Yeah.
She's in danger. You're in danger, girl. But spoiler here from the book. When it comes to Horace, Hippolyta and George's son in the book compared to Dee in this story, I just keep thinking now from reading the book, how much, with so few episodes left, how are they going to get this all in there? Because it looks like we're going to have a Dee part here where they have the Dee storyline, or at least the storyline from the book is that Lancaster did go after their children to try to get answers about where the hell everything is, the book and everything. So I'm trying to see how Lancaster's going to use Dee here, with, either a magical spell or dolls like they did in the book. I love it. So again, it's very pulpy. This whole thing with Dee and Lancaster, it should be the same way. It should be very pulpy, and a lot of crazy poltergeisty things should happen as well. Let's see. I'm excited, but I don't know how they're going to get through all of this with so few episodes left.
Diana Freeman, what do you know about magic?
So that brings us to the end of Lovecraft Country episode 7. We'll be back next week for even more breakdowns. Hopefully we get some answers. I'm really worried about Dee.
She'll be fine. Dee, Diana, Wonder Woman, she's okay. She'll be all right.
Oh my God, I just got it. Hippolyta and Dee, Diana, there you go.
Okay. Bye, everyone.